I've lived with chronic pain since I was 11 years old. My family calls it milking attention. The morning of my grandfather's estate announcement, I opened my nightstand drawer for my medication, the only thing that lets me walk without collapsing, and found it empty. Every single pill gone. My hands shook as I texted my sister Madison. Her reply came instantly. "You probably lost them. You're always so dramatic about everything." But I didn't lose them. Someone took them. And as I stood in that hospital conference room 12 hours later, spine-screaming legs trembling, sweat dripping down my neck, I watched my mother's face drain white when the doctor pressed play on a video I didn't know existed. She screamed, "Turn it off!" Madison fainted before the screen went dark, and my grandfather from his wheelchair whispered 4 words that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. It's been 25 years. 25 years of what I was about to find out. Have you ever discovered that the people who should have protected you were the ones destroying you all along? My name is Erin Wolf. I'm 36 years old, an interior designer with my own small but successful business, and I've lived with chronic sciatica since I was 11. My family thinks I'm exaggerating. They've thought that for 25 years. Growing up as the older sister should have meant something. Instead, I learned early that in the Wolf family there was Madison, and then there was me. Madison was the golden child, beautiful, charming, effortlessly the center of every room. I was the quiet one, the sick one, the daughter who somehow never quite measured up. When I graduated top of my design program, my parents mentioned it once and changed the subject to Madison's new boyfriend. When I landed my first major client, my mother asked if I was sure I could handle the stress with my condition. Every achievement I fought for was minimized. Every struggle I endured was mocked as attention-seeking. After a while, I stopped sharing anything at all. But my grandfather Harold was different. He was the only person in my family who ever looked at me like I mattered. Every Sunday he used to call just to ask how I was really doing, not the polite version, but the truth. He remembered my medication schedule better than I did. He asked about my work and actually listened to my answers. When I was at my lowest, his voice on the phone was sometimes the only thing that got me through the week. Then 2 years ago, everything changed. Grandpa was diagnosed with heart failure, and Madison immediately volunteered to become his primary caregiver. At first, I thought it was genuine. Maybe my sister had finally grown up. Maybe she wanted to give back to the man who had loved us both. But slowly, I started noticing things. My calls to Grandpa went unanswered more often than not. When I visited, Madison was always there, hovering, steering every conversation. Grandpa would look at me sometimes with this desperate expression, like he was trying to tell me something but couldn't find the words. Before he could speak, Madison would interrupt. "Grandpa's tired, Erin. You should probably go." I wanted to believe I was imagining it, but something felt deeply wrong and I couldn't prove it. Then came the week that changed everything. My mother called me out of nowhere, which should have been my first warning sign. She never calls unless she wants something. "How's your medication?" she asked, her voice oddly careful. "Do you have enough?" I couldn't remember the last time she'd asked about my health without an undertone of judgment. Later that same day, she suggested I skip the upcoming estate planning meeting. "You know how your condition acts up," she said. "Maybe it's better if you just rest." That night, I came home to find my bedroom window slightly open. I always lock it. Always. And lingering in the air was a perfume I recognized instantly, not Madison's usual scent, but my mother's. My chest tightened. Why would my mother have been in my apartment? The next morning, I received a call from Grandpa's lawyer, the first direct contact I'd had that wasn't filtered through Madison in months. His voice was serious. "Your grandfather insists you attend the estate announcement," he said. "He has something important to tell you, something he says he should have told you 25 years ago." I asked what he meant, but the lawyer only repeated, "He insists. Please be there." 25 years. The number echoed in my head. I was 11 years old 25 years ago. The year my back problems started. The year everything in my family shifted in ways I never understood. That evening, I went to my nightstand drawer for my pain medication, the prescription that keeps me functional, that lets me walk and work and live a normal life. I opened the drawer and found it completely empty. Every single pill was gone. My hands trembled as I stared at the empty space, the open window, my mother's perfume. And now this. Someone had been in my home. Someone had taken the only thing standing between me and collapse. But who? And why now, right before the most important family meeting of my life, I spent that entire night tearing my apartment apart, searching every drawer, every cabinet, every corner where I might have somehow misplaced an entire bottle of prescription painkillers. I knew I hadn't. I knew exactly where I kept them, the same place I'd kept them for years. But when you've been told your whole life that you're dramatic, that you exaggerate, that your pain isn't as bad as you claim, a small part of you starts to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe I did forget. Maybe I am losing my mind. That's what gaslighting does to you. It makes you doubt the things you know to be true. By morning, the pain in my lower back had spread down both legs. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. I texted my family, keeping it simple. Someone took my medication. Did anyone come by my apartment yesterday? Madison responded within minutes. Pills don't just walk away, Erin. You probably forgot where you put them. This is exactly what I mean about you always making everything into a crisis. My mother's response came seconds later, almost too fast, as if she'd been waiting. Why would anyone take your pills? You must have misplaced them. You know how scattered you get when you're stressed. I stared at my phone, reading both messages over and over. Madison attacked. Mother deflected. Two different approaches, but somehow perfectly coordinated. Were they working together? The thought made my stomach turn. Around noon, Madison showed up at my door, carrying a fruit basket wrapped in cellophane with a bright yellow bow. She was smiling for the benefit of my neighbor across the hall who happened to be checking her mail. Just wanted to see how my big sister is doing, Madison announced loudly, her voice dripping with performed sweetness. Once inside, the mask dropped. She set the basket on my counter and looked around my apartment with barely concealed contempt. You look terrible, she said. Maybe you should skip tomorrow. Grandpa would understand. I watched her carefully, noting how her eyes kept darting to my bedroom door. The lawyer called me, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the pain radiating through my body. He said Grandpa wants to tell me something from 25 years ago. The change in Madison was instant and shocking. Her face didn't show the greed I expected, the calculating look of someone worried about inheritance. Instead, I saw raw terror, pure visceral fear that drained the color from her cheeks. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Whatever he tells you, don't believe it, she whispered urgently. He's old Aaron. His memory is failing. He confuses things, makes up stories. You can't trust anything he says. I pulled my arm away. Why are you so scared of what an old man with a failing memory might say? Madison's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. She just grabbed her purse and left, slamming the door behind her. In that moment, I understood something important. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about the estate. Madison was terrified of something specific, something that happened 25 years ago. And whatever it was, she would do anything to keep it buried. The pain drove me to my doctor that afternoon. I could barely walk into his office. Dr. Patterson had been treating my sciatica for 8 years, and he knew my prescription history better than anyone. When I explained that my medication had vanished, his expression shifted from concern to suspicion. Controlled substances don't just disappear, he said slowly. Have you considered that someone might have taken them deliberately? He asked if I had any security cameras in my apartment. The question hit me like a slap. I did have cameras. I'd installed them 2 years ago after someone tried to break into my building. Basic wireless cameras, one in my living room and one pointed at my bedroom door. I'd almost forgotten they existed. I'd been so consumed by pain and confusion that I hadn't thought to check them. Dr. Patterson leaned forward in his chair. There's something else you should know. Someone called my office last week claiming to be you. They asked detailed questions about your prescription history, your dosage limits when your refills were scheduled. The voice was female. My blood ran cold. Someone had been planning this. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. Doctor, Patterson wrote me an emergency prescription to get me through the next few days, but his warning stayed with me. Without proper medication, 72 hours is the threshold for potential permanent nerve damage. Someone wants you incapacitated, Aaron. You need to find out who and why. Despite every instinct telling me to stay home, I drove to the hospital that evening to see my grandfather. I needed to hear what he'd been trying to tell me. I needed to understand what had happened 25 years ago. The pain was excruciating, but I refused to let it stop me. Madison wasn't in Grandpa's room when I arrived, which felt like a small miracle. He was awake, propped up against pillows, looking frailer than I'd ever seen him. But when he saw me, his eyes lit up with something like relief. "Aaron," he breathed. "You came. I was afraid they'd keep you away again." I took his hand, feeling how thin and papery his skin had become. "What do you mean again?" Grandpa's grip tightened with surprising strength. "They've been keeping you away for 2 years. Madison tells me you don't want to visit, that you're too busy with your career to bother with an old man. But I know that's not true. I've seen the sign-in sheets at the front desk. You come every week. She throws them away before I can see them." Tears burned in my eyes. 2 years. 2 years of Madison poisoning my grandfather against me, making him believe I'd abandoned him. "There's something I should have told you a long time ago," Grandpa continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "About why you're really in pain. About what happened when you were 11 years old. I should have spoken up then, but I was a coward. I wanted to keep the family together, and instead I let them." The door burst open. Madison stood in the doorway, her face twisted with barely controlled fury. "Visiting hours are over," she announced, her voice sharp enough to cut. "Grandpa needs his rest." She positioned herself between us, physically blocking me from him. I had no choice but to leave. In the hallway, Madison caught up with me. She grabbed my elbow and pulled me into a quiet alcove near the elevators. "If you show up tomorrow and let him talk," she hissed, her face inches from mine, "I will destroy you, not because of the money. I don't care about the money. Some secrets need to stay buried forever. You have no idea what you're digging into." I met her eyes without flinching. "Then why don't you tell me?" Madison's laugh was hollow and bitter. "Because some truths will break you, Aaron, and this one will break all of us." That night, I sat at my laptop with shaking hands and pulled up the security camera footage from the day my medication disappeared. I expected to see Madison climbing through my bedroom window, her face caught in the grainy footage. I was prepared for that. What I was not prepared for was watching my own mother calmly open my nightstand drawer, take every single pill, and slip them into her purse. Her movements were methodical, unhurried, as if she'd done this before. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed. I turned up the volume, straining to hear. "It's done," my mother said into the phone. "She won't be able to stand tomorrow, let alone show up." My heart stopped. But then came the voice on the other end, the voice that made everything I thought I knew about my family shatter into pieces. It was Madison giving instructions. My mother wasn't the mastermind. She was following orders, and the person pulling the strings was my own sister. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark watching that footage over and over, listening to my mother take orders from my sister like a soldier following commands. Every replay made the betrayal cut deeper. By morning, my back was on fire and my heart was numb, but I had made a decision. I was going to that meeting. I was going to walk into that room and look them both in the eye. And I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what they had done. The hospital conference room was on the 3rd floor, just down the hall from my grandfather's room. I arrived 20 minutes early, each step a battle against the pain shooting down my legs. Dr. Patterson's emergency prescription had taken the edge off, but I was still limping badly. I pushed through the door and saw them all waiting. My father sat in the corner, looking everywhere except at me. My mother was positioned near the window, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, and Madison stood by the long table, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, the picture of a devoted granddaughter. When she saw me walk through that door, her face went white, not surprised that I was hurt, surprised that I was there at all. She had been so certain her plan would work. She had been so sure I would be too broken to show up. My mother's hands began to tremble visibly. The two of them exchanged a panicked glance that confirmed everything I already knew. They were in this together. They had been in this together all along. Then I saw my grandfather. He was in a wheelchair near the head of the table, looking frailer than ever, but with a fire in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. When our eyes met, tears began streaming down his weathered cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. "You came," he said, his voice cracking. "I knew you would. I knew they couldn't stop you." I walked to him and took his hand, feeling his thin fingers grip mine with surprising strength. Beside him stood his lawyer, Mr. Brennan, a serious man in his 60s with a laptop and projector already set up on the table. This wasn't just an estate announcement. This was something my grandfather had been planning for months. Mr. Brennan cleared his throat. Before we proceed with the estate matters, Mr. Wolf has requested that certain evidence be presented to the family. I want to be clear that everything you're about to see was obtained legally, either from Ms. Erin Wolf's personal security system or through official channels during an investigation into medical document fraud. Madison's confident expression flickered. My mother gripped the arms of her chair. The projector hummed to life, and my security camera footage filled the screen. There was my mother, climbing through my bedroom window with practiced ease. There she was, opening my nightstand drawer and taking every single pill. There she was pulling out her phone and making the call. The room was dead silent as her voice played through the speakers. It's done. She won't be able to stand tomorrow, let alone show up. And then came Madison's voice crystal clear through the speakerphone, giving precise instructions. Take all of it, check her calendar for backup transportation plans, and make sure to use gloves next time. We can't leave prints. My mother let out a strangled sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Madison stood frozen, her mask finally cracking. The room understood now. My mother wasn't the mastermind. She was the operative. And my sister, my perfect little sister, had been pulling the strings all along. But Mr. Brennan wasn't finished. There's more, he said quietly. During our investigation into suspected medical fraud, we obtained security footage from this hospital covering the past 24 months. The screen changed to show the hospital hallway outside my grandfather's room. Date stamps in the corner marked the footage as spanning 2 years. We watched Madison intercept phone calls meant for Grandpa hanging up when she saw my name on the caller ID. We watched her sign medical documents with my name forging my signature on authorization forms I had never seen. We watched her tell hospital staff with a concerned expression on her face that her sister Erin had requested not to be contacted about their grandfather's condition. She's very busy with her career, Madison explained to a sympathetic nurse. She doesn't have time for family obligations anymore. But the worst footage was still to come. The screen showed Madison sitting beside Grandpa's hospital bed, holding his hand with fake tenderness. Erin called today, she told him softly. She said she's too busy with her career to visit. She has her own life now, Grandpa. She doesn't care about you anymore, but I'm here. I'll always be here. I watched my grandfather's face crumble on that footage, watched hope die in his eyes as he believed the lie. 2 years of this. 2 years of calculated manipulation of forged documents and intercepted calls and poisonous lies. Madison had spent 2 years making me look like an uncaring, absent granddaughter, while systematically cutting me off from the only person in my family who ever truly loved me. Then the footage shifted again, and my father appeared on screen. He was standing in the hallway while Madison and my mother discussed their plan in hushed voices. The audio was faint, but clear enough. Madison was practicing my signature on a notepad while my mother watched. My father stood just a few feet away, close enough to hear every word, close enough to see exactly what they were doing. And then he turned and walked away. He didn't object. He didn't intervene. He just left. In the conference room, my father broke down completely. I just wanted peace, he sobbed, his face buried in his hands. I didn't want to choose sides. I thought if I stayed out of it, everything would work itself out. My grandfather's voice cut through the room like ice. Choosing no side is choosing a side, David. You watched them plan to hurt your daughter, and you walked away. You abandoned Erin to keep the peace. That makes you just as guilty as they are. Grandpa turned to address the whole room, his frail voice filled with a determination that silenced everyone. For 2 years, Madison told me Erin had abandoned me. She controlled my phone, my visitors, my mail. She threw away the sign-in sheets that proved Erin visited every single week. She intercepted the letters Erin sent and never let me see them. I started to believe her. I started to think my granddaughter had forgotten me, that I would die alone and unloved by the one person who ever saw me as more than a source of money. He paused, gathering strength. But then my lawyer, the only person Madison couldn't control, began investigating. He showed me the call logs proving Erin tried to reach me hundreds of times. He showed me the visitor records Madison had hidden. He showed me everything. Grandpa looked directly at Madison, and for the first time I saw genuine hatred in his gentle eyes. You didn't just steal pills from your sister. You didn't just forge documents and tell lies. You tried to steal the last years of my life with someone I love. You tried to make me die believing Erin had abandoned me. That is unforgivable. Madison's composure shattered completely. She slammed her hands on the table and screamed, her face contorted with something between rage and terror. I did it to protect this family. You have no idea what you're doing. You want to know why she's always been sick? Why she's always been the broken one? It didn't start 2 years ago. It started 25 years ago. She pointed at me, her hand shaking violently. Ask Grandpa what really happened in that basement. Ask him why Mom and Dad have protected me my whole life. Ask him why Erin has been in pain since she was 11 years old. Ask him. The room fell completely silent. Every eye turned to my grandfather.